How's it going, guys? I'm here to give a little review slash thoughts video on the WWE Network exclusive that aired last night on the WWE Network called Warrior: The Ultimate Legend. It was a 1 hour special documentary basically highlighting the life and career of the Ultimate Warrior. I was gonna make this video because I don't know, I didn't feel like I wanted to make this video, but the events that happened last week and just how well done this was, I feel like I kind of want to make a video on this special because I think it's really worth reviewing and giving my thoughts on. But yeah, it was honestly one of the best WWE documentaries I've seen. It was only an hour long, so I can only imagine what it would have been like if they would have been longer. Maybe hour and a half to 2 hours. I can only imagine how well amazing it would have been if they would have made it longer. But the documentary was fantastic. Like I said, this is honestly one of my favorites that WWE's ever done. It was you can say an emotional roller coaster ride watching this thing. Like it if you thought you were sad during the Warrior video package on Raw, watch this documentary and that video package is nothing compared to what you just watched. But the first half of the documentary was basically just highlighting his career, basically just going over pretty much everything you probably already know. So there's probably nothing new about what was happening or was being told. You got some clips from his new DVD, the Ultimate Collection. So if you have that, you'll be seeing some clips from that DVD on the first portion of this documentary. But yeah, like I said, they just went over his career. But this time, I actually liked it because they actually had Warrior speak, his thoughts and gave his perspective on things this time. So that was good to see. Like when they talked about the SummerSlam '91 incident, he kind of spoke for himself. He didn't say too much, but he kind of just spoke for himself. And when they talked about when he left again in '92, they talked about how he got fired because the whole growth hormones he was taking, and Vince wasn't, didn't understand what he was taking, so that's why, Vince got rid of him again. So yeah, it was actually interesting to see, him tell his side of the story this time from that portion of the documentary. But the second half of it, the last half hour, was just pure amazing. It was honestly the behind the scenes footage and the emotions that everyone was giving and just everything. The last half an hour, honestly, was just spectacular. Just the footage that we were being shown, the watching him, reconnect and reconcile with Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon, that was, that's worth buying the network alone for, specials like this, because this honestly was a special. It was something, it was a spectacle to watch. It was amazing. Just, it was a feel-good moment watching all this happen during that one weekend. Really just seeing Warrior make peace with, his past demons, with, having heat with guys and now being friends with them is honestly something special to see. And it was great, like watching when him and Hogan, Vince, told Hogan or asked Hogan not to, talk to Warrior before the Hall of Fame or after the Hall of Fame. So before WrestleMania, Warrior and Hogan, ran into each other and basically just made up. Hogan apologized for everything, and Warrior, told him, the past is the past, and we just got to move on. And even the cameraman following Warrior, they pretty much asked him like, "He wants to record this," and they're like, "Yeah, this is gonna be good stuff right here." And it was great. We saw Warrior, we saw footage of him going to WWE headquarters to visit Triple H to talk about the contract he was negotiating at the time, I guess. And when I was basically discussing the future, Triple H, explained how he spent a lot of personal time with the Warrior trying to make what happened during WrestleMania weekend happen with him. They actually showed footage of the trial. I forgot to mention this first half of the documentary. They actually showed footage of the trial when Warrior was suing them for the Warrior trademark with Hulk Hogan. When Hogan was on the stand. So that was actually very interesting to see footage from the actual trial make it onto this documentary. But seeing people like Vince McMahon was crying, Triple H was starting shedding tears, Stephanie McMahon, Hulk Hogan. You can really tell that Warrior had an effect on these people's lives, and it was they were relieved to reconnect with him and become friends again, and it was honestly very special to see that. You saw him and his daughters backstage after Raw. It was just like I said, it was an emotional roller coaster seeing the last half of it. It was honestly the behind the scenes footage and the emotion behind everyone when Warrior was around them or just reconnecting with them was honestly unbelievable. It was honestly worth the network alone for 6 months. That was worth it, and I really hope WWE puts this on DVD one day. Not just this, but all that footage they recorded during that weekend. They have so much footage with Warrior that weekend that it'll make a great DVD. I believe they take all that behind the scene footage during that weekend and interview clips that they didn't air, put it in that one documentary for Ultimate Warrior, and you'll have an amazing DVD. Potentially one of the best DVDs they've ever produced if they did that. I really hope WWE does do that one day, and I think they will do that because there isn't a legitimate Ultimate Warrior documentary, and with all that footage they have and the interview they took with him, I believe they can make one hell of a documentary with the Ultimate Warrior now. But yeah, just in you he's Ultimate Warrior, just a phenomenal documentary. You saw him give Vince McMahon the book, The Little Engine That Could, because that was basically what WWE was, the little engine that could, and he signed it. He signed a quote that Vince told him a long time ago, and how after Raw, Vince and Warrior hugged it out, and Warrior's basically telling Vince how he looked at him as a father, and that's where the picture where Stephanie McMahon posted on Twitter of Vince and Warrior hugging. That's where it came from because they Warrior thanked him and everything after that, and Triple H told Warrior, I think it was after his Hall of Fame speech, he went with the Warrior, it was during the video package before Warrior came out to the speech. You saw Triple H go up to Warrior and he whispered, or he told him in his ear, like, that video package, was everything that happened to that point, all the negotiating, everything was worth it, just for that video package right there for the Ultimate Warrior. And it truly was a spectacle, even, I think, was it Vince McMahon or Triple H? One of them said that, Warrior was just so happy during that weekend that you couldn't even slap the smile off his face. He was just so happy. And towards the end of it, explained to it how Triple H found out about his death. Dana, Ultimate Warrior's wife, actually called Triple H's assistant because she didn't know who else to call, so she called him. And Triple H's assistant called him and told him, like, hey, Warrior passed on. And, Triple H, he had to tell Vince. So Triple H was the first person within the wrestling business to know. He personally had to tell, Vince McMahon and everything. It was just very, very sad. But yeah, phenomenal documentary. Definitely go out of your way to see it. Like I said, I hope WWE puts this on DVD one day with with more footage, to make a phenomenal documentary. Not that this wasn't, but an hour documentary. This was phenomenal. Imagine we can do it 2 hours with all the other footage they have. But yeah, excuse me. But yeah, definitely go out of your way to watch this if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll probably have the Ultimate Warrior, the Ultimate Collection DVD review up probably Sunday, most likely Sunday, Easter Sunday. So stay tuned to that if you want to, watch that review. But yeah, until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later.